What is up, guys? It is Og here, back with another video. We are officially 10 days away from the pre-patch and only 2 weeks and 10 days away from TBC. Get excited. One of the things that I wanted to kind of test and I was hoping would actually happen would be that the PTR would transition over to the pre-patch prior to the pre-patch actually coming out. Because there's a lot of things that we've been testing on the beta, but we don't know if the beta is going to transition perfectly over to live. The pre-patch on the PTR, whatever it's finalized as in 10 days, should be what transfers over. Now, that doesn't mean that there will be no changes over the next 10 days. That's why it's on the PTR. That's the whole point. But it does mean that we can test a lot of things and hopefully get some clarification on whether or not they'll be in the game. And so basically, that's what I did yesterday. I went on the stream, I hopped in, and I went through the PTR, and I tested pretty much everything that I could think of testing in a reasonable means and reasonable requirements for you guys. And so we're going to be jumping into all of those different things and then also talk about some other big news that is happening. First, though, I want to show you guys how to get on the PTR yourselves. So if you want to go over to this site, and I'll have it linked down below, you can basically install the PTR client, create a PTR account, and you guys can hop in. Previous to it being on the PTR, you would have to have beta access, but you can now go through, you can play, some basic kind of things with the pre-patch. You can't go to the Outlands, obviously, because TBC isn't activated on the pre-patch, so you can't get out in the Outlands, but you can test through everything else. Also, real quick before we get started, have you guys ever noticed this? Now, I don't know why I'm getting so tripped up on this, but I've never actually noticed this. So I'm going to throw a grenade over to the right. My character actually picks up like an actual bomb, and it actually has like sparks coming out of it and then thrown. Was that added in TBC? That was wild. So obviously mages are going to be curious if they can do the farms. I do have a full playlist of how to do every single one of the AOE farms post the AOE cap. I'll have that down in the description down below and probably linked up in a card up above that you guys can go check out. But I still wanted to check it on the pre-patch to see if there was anything different from the beta to the pre-patch. A lot of people think that the pre-patch and the beta actual code is going to be the exact same, and I think outside of the Outlands it's very similar. There are some things though that are different from what I was seeing on the beta over the past couple months. So one of the things I wanted to test coming into Mara and doing the Mara 340 pool, also Ted J, the paladin, if you guys haven't checked out his videos yet, awesome paladin stuff, basically challenged me to try to beat his time of 15 minutes because Pallies might be able to do the Mara 340 actually faster than mages in pre-patch. Granted, my mage doesn't have great gear. I don't have MQG. I don't have 5-piece CG set, so my flame strikes aren't incredibly fast or anything like that. But he basically challenged me to 15 minutes. And so now what the strategy is basically you have to use flame strikes and blizzards and keep the mobs slowed and burn them down with the actual ground effect of flame strike, because flame strike's ground effect is not capped by AoE. Blizzard, however, is, and so that's why you're going to see that my Blizzard, even though it's max rank Blizzard, is really only doing like 10 damage, 11 damage, 10 damage. So it's not going to do much damage. What's actually going to do the damage is going to be that Flame Strike. And so keeping the mobs controlled and then doing the Flame Strike on the AoE, or Flame Strike on the ground, is going to be very important. That's going to make something like the ZG set so good, or Haste Gear over in TBC so good, because it's going to make it so that your Flame Strikes get casted easier or faster, which means you can get back into the Blizzard and slow the mobs. So it'll be nice. But long story short, all of the pools are still going to be possible. Even the Mara 500 pool. The only pools that might not be possible is the solo Strathholm pool for mages, because the AoE cap would make it so it'd be very difficult to kill the mobs before they kill you. Outside of that though, every single mage AoE pool is going to be possible. It'll be in the playlist. You guys can check that out. Moving on, we have the Paladin SM farm. Now, I was getting obliterated a few times in this when I first started, but then I kind of figured out different placements and different areas you can stand. So I'll have a video on this as well coming out in the near future on what I recommend is probably one of the most optimal ways to do it. Of course, there's other ways to do it as well, but this is going to allow your group to kind of get experience. Basically, you want to make sure that your back is facing the mobs. And what was happening early on is that, my placement, for whatever reason, even though it looked like they were in front of me, they actually weren't, and they were 100 to 0ing me. So eventually I just went to the good old true corners and was able to take down the mobs. But as you can see here, with the changes to Skullflame Shield and the changes to Demon Forge Breastplate being reverted, these pools are now currently possible. You're able to do even Herod included in SM, and you're able to burn through SM Cath and Armory in about 10 to 11 minutes. and then you can include library to get under the 15-minute per hour cap. So paladins will likely be able to get a little bit more experience than mages for people in the pre-patch while leveling up, which obviously might be important because we're not going to have as much time with only a 2-week pre-patch. So I'll have all of those videos you guys can check out for how to do the AoE farms, but there's a lot of things that, we just want to check. We want to check if Cenarion Circle Rep has changed. We want to check if the mobs are no longer elite. We want to check if Chronoboosts are still in the game. We want to check all these other kind of things. And so one of the first things I did was I came over to Silithus to check the Cenarion Circle Rep. And one of the biggest things of pre-patch is, will paladins be able to get Wrath of Cenarius easier? The answer is yes. Each of the Cenarion Circle Rep quest turn-ins, these encrypted Twilight Text, for example, give 500 rep, 550 if you're human, which means it's going to be much easier to get the Wrath of Cenarius video. Highly recommend checking out the Wrath of Cenarius video if you're going to be doing AoE farming on a pally, as it is going to make it much, much faster. Next thing I wanted to check out is the number of lockouts we're going to have. Obviously, 1 to 60 is going to be much different in TBC or in pre-patch. There's some changes we'll talk about in a little bit. But one of the things that I was curious about is, what about the instance resets? If we are able to do what it's like on the beta right now, I don't think that there is a cap on the beta. I think there is actually no instance cap on the beta outside of the 5 hourly cap. On live right now, though, there's 30 per hour, right? Or sorry, 30 per day, which means that if you can only do 30 per day, leveling up your tunes is going to be a lot different if you're trying to rush it as quickly as possible in the pre-patch than if there's 70 or 80 instances that you can do. And so one of the things I wanted to test was I wanted to test the lockouts. Unfortunately, I didn't have a ton of time to play yesterday, but other people have tested them and have gone well past 30 lockouts per hour. I don't know if this is going to stay in the game. However, currently it looks like, based on the beta, based on pre-patch, if there's a copy over, it looks like there won't be a 30 limit per day, which honestly is fantastic, because if people want to play the crap out of their Drain Eyes, if they want to play the crap out of their Blood Elves, or if they're a mage and they want to farm ZF, or a pally wants to farm ZF, things like that, I think it's great that they're able to. We only have 2 weeks to get ready for TBC, so if people want to do that, I think people should be able to do that. That's my personal opinion. We'll see what actually happens, but currently it doesn't look like there's any cap on the PTR outside of the 5 per hour. Next thing I wanted to test is the Hunter pet tagging. Unfortunately, my pet ran away. I hope that's just because I'm not Beast Mastery, so I don't have the exotic pets because I had the ZG pet. Regardless, though, I had to tame a new pet and I had to attack the mob. Now, important things to know about how to mob tag in pre-patch and then TBC. You need to have a person with your level 1 in the group and in the same zone, but not close enough to steal experience. So it's not just one hunter and one person actually leveling. It's one hunter plus his pet outside of the group, and then you with somebody else in the group in the same zone logged in. They could be dead, but they have to be logged in to not steal experience. So I quickly stole a wolf. J-Rad over here hit the mob, killed the mob with the wolf, and we were able to get 50 experience. 50 experience is the same amount that you would get at level 1 from killing it yourself, which means that mob tagging is still in the game. He didn't get it past 50%, so there's no way that it would have been scaled down at all. So mod tagging is still in pre-patch, and in 10 days that could be really important when it comes to leveling up your Drain Eye or Blood Elf. Next, portals to Silvermoon are in the game. So that means that if you're a mage, I would highly recommend going over to Silvermoon very quickly and picking up the portal to Silvermoon. In fact, there might be a lot of people wanting to buy the portal to Silvermoon, just as a little potential tip that might help you out in making some gold. There's probably going to be a good amount of people who want to buy the portal to Silvermoon. So portals to Silvermoon will be in, and that'll be very important, obviously, in the pre-patch, getting ready for the TBC. Next, we wanted to check if the mobs are elite in Silithus. I'm not sure about the mobs everywhere out in the world being elite, but the Silithus obviously is the area that has the most elite mobs. All the caves and everything like that. Wrath of Cenarius, you guys are very familiar, hopefully, with all of that. The mobs are no longer elite. It's kind of hard to see, but you can see it up there. The mobs are no longer elite, which means that the Wrath of Cenarius is going to be much, much easier to get through, and grinding on these mobs, even if you want like Carapace Fragments or something like that, it's going to be a lot easier to grind through these mobs over in Silithus. I think this is going to extend to all open world elites as well, and it also does make some quests easier, such as the Calling, for example, which is from this person right here. Used to be a raid quest, but you can now actually solo it. So it's going to change up some of the raid quests and things like that as well. One thing I was really interested in is, would jewel crafters be in the game? The answer, guys, as of now, yes. So as of now, jewel crafters are in the game. Don't click on the apprentice jewel crafter, click on the jewel crafting trainer first, but you are able to currently train jewel crafting. If this is actually the way it's going to be in the pre-patch, that means for about 10 days, we're going to be able to just burn through jewel crafting. And so mats such as like iron ore and mithril ore and things like that, and the low level gems, shadow gem, malachite, stuff like that, those people that stocked up on them early will want to offload them in the pre-patch, not in TBC. It also is going to make it very interesting because a rush for something like fel iron ore and things like that won't be as extreme because people will they won't be stocking up on those immediately. Or sorry, now they will be able to stock up on those immediately. Previously, they would have had to level 1 to 300 jewel crafting after the TBC release, and so they would focus more on the copper and the low level ores, and there wouldn't be as much mining, I would say, for fel iron. But now there's going to be a large focus during pre-patch for those, meaning that plenty of people will be farming fel iron ore. It'll probably drop the price of fel iron ore and adamantite ore slightly, but they should still be great gold farms at the beginning of TBC. Now, the player experience was one thing that I was really, really curious about. And this is actually one of the biggest things to kind of test. Reason being is that player experience gets nerfed. And you can see here that at level 37 on the PTR, it's 62,400 experience per level. On live, it's 76,100 experience per level, which is a 22% reduction on the experience needed to level in just any given level. Now, this isn't just a static 21.95% for every single level. It looks like it scales up at level 20. It's like 11%, and then it scales up to like 25% by the time you hit 60. So it'll shake itself out to about 20 to 22 probably % less experience that you need to level up all the way from 60. But that's fantastic. And then as you can see here with the 47, so a level 47 toon, it instead is 22.02% reduction. So you can see there the scaling up and things like that. That's going to make it much, much easier to level up through these levels. Now, this is just experience. There's also another component to all this, which is the actual quests as well. And so I set out on a mission. Buy as many Green Hills of Stranglethorn pages as I could. But it was worth it. It was 100% worth it. So here we have the Green Hills of Stranglethorn quests. Now, this is currently on live, and so you're going to be able to see 775 experience coming across for a quest. So before I accidentally turn in all these, I wanted to make sure I logged out on my toon, copied it over to the pre-patch so that I could test it out. And with the same exact quest on the pre-patch, we're getting 1,100 experience. So 775 to 1,100 experience. That means that we're getting 39.36% more experience from questing in pre-patch. That is drastic. That's almost 50% more experience from quests, and you need 22% less experience per level. And then if you turn in all the Stranglethorn pages, the last quest of Stranglethorn gives you 6,550 experience, which is ludicrous when you only need 62,000 for a level. That's more than 10% of a level just from the last quest of the Green Hills. So quest experience is actually going to be huge. And this is probably, well, this is 100% a good thing, but this is probably going to cut in a good bit to boosting because it's going to be a lot easier to actually go out in the open world and just level up through questing. So one of the biggest concerns is obviously the fact that we only have 2 weeks, but the combination of these, if you take the average of the 22% reduction in experience needed and the 40% increase in experience that you get from quests, it averages out to about 30% faster to go from 1 to 60. So if something was going to previously take about 6 days played for somebody to go from 1 to 60, it's going to take about 4 days and 2 hours. That's still about a 7-hour-a-day grind over the course of the 2 weeks to get prepped for TBC, but it definitely is much, much easier and saves you a lot of time in comparison to what it used to be. So that is awesome news, and the experience is probably one of the biggest changes leading up to pre-patch and TBC that we're seeing. Killing mobs, however, does not change the experience, both in dungeons and in the open world. And so what I did was I just killed this one random mob over here, level 31, on both the pre-patch and on live, and confirmed that it was the same exact experience on both. I then went into a dungeon, made sure my locks were the same level, so I had to get them up to 38 real quick on both, or 48, got them up to 48, tested the experience from a level 43 elite, and it's the same exact experience on both. So what does this mean overall? This means that from boosting, you're going to get 22%-ish more experience throughout boosting. From questing, while leveling up, you're going to get 40% more experience on top of boosting, right? So boosting, you're going to need 20% less experience while leveling in boosts, so you'll get more experience per boost, but the actual mob experience won't change. Quest, though, you're going to get much more experience from questing, which means both boosting and questing will be faster, but questing is going to be much, much faster than it currently is in live. Some other things to test. So guys, one big thing is right now we're able to stack potions. Mage Blood, Mighty Troll's Blood, Zandalarian Speed. I don't know why I can't remember the name right now. But in a pre-patch and in TBC, these are going to count as Guardian Elixirs. And you'll only be able to have one elixir live at any time. This is live on the pre-patch. And so here you can see me actually testing it. I pop a Arcane Elixir, pop Elixir of Giants, and they override each other. So with that in mind, it sounds like for raids, you're not going to be able to stack up on a ton of pots anymore. So that's very interesting. We'll see if they do change that with the pre-patch having 2 weeks of normal, Nax raid content, if they do change that. The talents will be different, making Nax and things like that a lot easier. But if you can't have all the world buff kind of things, it's definitely going to make it a little bit tougher. Speaking of the world buff kind of things, some of those world buffs actually don't transition into instances currently. So Dark Moon Fair, when you zone into BWL, falls off. ZG buff stays on. Don't know why. We'll see what they decide to do with that, whether they decide to let all those buffs stay on. I would imagine that they're going to make it so that all the buffs can stay on, so you can still do raids very similar to how you're doing them now, obviously with a little bit of differences, but we'll see what actually happens with that. Two last things as far as the pre-patch testing goes. Instant mail. For instant mail, gold is confirmed, items is not instant. So if you're just transferring over gold between your two characters, it will be instant. If you transfer an item, it will take an hour. Chronoboons currently don't work. They're currently a gray item. However, they will work for pre-patch. Blizzard made a post saying that they will work for pre-patch. And then just to close, the video on a nice bombshell, Slave Pens is nerfed. Shout out to Mirror for sending me this video. Basically last night he let me know that Slave Pens was nerfed. I haven't been able to get in there to test it myself. But once you jump up, they basically made this jello or a sticky quicksand kind of area, and you actually can't move once you jump up onto the ledge in Slave Pens, which is a hilarious temporary fix. But yeah, if this stays true, it looks like Slave Pens might not work for TBC leveling, which would completely change the world first game. So, just always fun to close out the video on a nice little bombshell. Hopefully, though, this guys showed you some interesting things that are happening right now with the pre-patch. As I said before, you guys can get onto the PTR and actually test out things yourselves, so definitely do that as well. And if you guys have anything that you guys would like me to test, or any questions or anything like that, definitely come hang out on the stream and ask me live on the stream, and I'm happy to check those out for you guys. Catch you guys in the next video.